What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Justin Rodriguez, your favorite lender here at Neighborhood Loans. And it is an honor to be actually the first episode in the new studio. So it's an honor to present the one and only Greg Cirone, one of the biggest agents in Chicago. And honestly, I love what you're doing with the new brokerage. So cheers to
All right,
that. Salud
salud.
with the cafecito.
Salud, cafecito. No, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
Of course, man.
Really, I'm honored to be here. You're
Thank you,
doing
brother.
great things,
Thank you, brother.
like
Appreciate it.
awesome things. This is awesome. The studio,
Yeah,
and I love it.
we appreciate that.
And yeah, and trust me, in a few years, you're gonna be the biggest agent, mortgage guy out there.
Thank you, brother.
I could see it. I
Thank
could
you,
see
brother.
it.
I appreciate it. And I think it's really humbling, and I'll tell you why. When I first got into industry, actually one of the first transactions, I don't know if you remember, was with Greg. And it
Wow.
was one of the first. He was on the listing side, and one of my good friends, Jonathan Lopez, we had a transaction, and
Jonathan.
I'll never forget. He was like, you want to look out for this guy. He's one of the biggest agents, and he's talking. I'm like, oh shit. Like I'm gonna go on the phone. I'm like, okay, let me call him. And you gave me a lot of advice. You were telling me how you got into the industry at a very young age, and it was a great conversation. So just give us a background on your backstory and how you got into the industry, man.
I love it, man. Thank you. Yeah, no, man, I was I've been a realtor for 20 years now.
Nice.
Believe it or not, I try
I
to
you're
keep
21, man.
I try, but no, that's not true.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of like I came back from Italy. I was working in banking,
Okay.
and real estate was in my family, a little bit. In Italy, my grandpa used to buy and sell houses, so I kind of had that little passion. But my dad wasn't in real estate, just a normal construction guy, working hard. And so when I got to banking, I loved banking. I did good, but I noticed there was, no money.
Right.
Tell you the truth,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Or you gotta, or probably it wasn't not even me. Like it wasn't like I like to be like out and about,
Yeah.
And so then I was meeting realtors that were coming in. They were always happy, and I swear to God.
Oh, dude, there you go.
Besides for the, the payroll check, but
Yeah.
no. And then I'm like, you know what? I really like it. I'm like, I'm gonna give it a try. I was, I'm always that kind of guy. I want to learn more every time.
Of course.
Every time. So I'm never happy. Maybe it could be good and bad. Some people are like, oh, you're never happy, but I always want more.
One more, yeah.
That's who I am.
Yeah.
And so at that point, like I was doing good in banking. I'm like, you know what? I wanna go get my license, and I did, and then little by little, I grew it.
And you started producing over there in Italy?
I was in Italy. Here I started producing. Yeah.
Okay.
Here. Yeah.
Do you know if the real estate market is a lot different over there from
It
where
is.
over
It's
here?
quite. It's different. So in Italy, think about it's like you're doing short sale deals.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like every deal over there is like a short sale deal.
Really?
That's how it is. Every single one. It's really complicated.
Yeah.
A lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
So you don't have a lot of numbers. There's not a lot. Even a top agent there. It's not like closing all these deals like here. It's harder.
Yeah.
That's how it is. It just
Right. It's just the nature of the business over there.
It's the nature of the business. Exactly.
Right.
Banks here lend a little bit easier. I think at the end of the day, the government in America promotes real estate.
Right.
The economy is around real estate.
Right.
That's why I never bet against real estate. I always tell people.
Yeah.
Because I just see it in the past 20 years. It's just whatever happens, ups and down, they're promoting real estate.
Yeah.
And that's why equity keeps growing.
Exactly.
Year after year.
Exactly.
So that's kind of like pretty much how I got into it. And then
did you have like a mentor in between that time where you kind of got you into the business, or you just kind of jumped?
No, I kind of just jump. I didn't just jump like, without a plan. I had a plan.
Okay.
I made sure I save a salary. I save a year worth of salary.
Okay.
Before jumping all the way in, because I was scared. I was young. I'm not like you. You're young to vicious.
Yeah.
No, but it was a little bit different too back then.
Mhm.
Social media was a little harder with social media. Like
Yeah.
you really had to do a lot of you're really going to the cafe, you're meeting people, shaking hands. Of course, it works now too, but back then you had to do that even more.
Right.
Now you could leverage a little bit with social media,
Right.
So
Right.
you reach more people,
Right.
So that's why I started with a plan. I'm like, hey, I gotta save up. I gotta make sure I save up enough money.
Right.
So even if I don't make no money for the first year, I'm not gonna die.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And that's what I did. But then, once I got in, it took off, because, you gotta work, and as long as you have that grit and you work hard, man, and you outwork everybody, Trust me, you're gonna make it on
Nah,
anything you do.
and that's what I absolutely love about this industry is like, if you don't get a check, no one's gonna pay you, right? If you don't get a buyer, you don't get a
Yeah,
seller, no one's gonna pay you. You know,
absolutely.
you're not. There's no choice
Yeah,
other than to work, and I
yeah,
absolutely love the fact that you came from a whole first off a whole nother country. Like that's
yeah.
crazy to come from another country and
Thank
then
you.
build a whole database
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
man you are right now. So
Thank you. I
kudos to you,
appreciate it.
salute to
I
that, man.
appreciate it.
That's
Salute, salute.
absolutely amazing. And but
Yeah.
I guess at what point in your career did you feel like it took off? Like that was like okay, Greg Cirone, the man, you know?
I feel like in my opinion, anybody get it, because a lot of people might ask questions like, and I have a lot of new agents that starts with me, right? At XR, and they're like, oh, how do I take off? Or how do I get all this business right away? Because I really didn't have nothing. Like I
Yeah.
had like, I didn't go to high school here, I didn't go to college here. So I didn't know a lot of people. I didn't know a lot of people. And most of my family was in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
So I told them you can't you can't have fear. Gotta work hard, you gotta network. And the first 5 years, really, when you get in your bed, my first 5 years, you gotta like really work your ass off, man.
Yeah.
You just gotta be all in. People like, there's a condo for a little condo, you're not gonna make money, you go. There's a little rental property, you're not gonna make money, you go. And then you're not going because you're thinking about that dollar. You're going to create context, create a relationship, because that person one day is gonna upgrade or gonna know somebody, and you're putting your name out there. So that's what I did for 5 years. I just like was like, it was like I was always working,
Right.
like, so that's why you got to grind it really, really hard, at least for a good 5 years, and that's how you create your base. And I feel then after that, then it took off.
Okay.
Then it took off.
Yeah, I think it's a
you know
numbers game. Ultimately, real estate, I think any form of sales, it don't necessarily have to
yeah,
be real estate. I think any form of sales is kind of just a network, right?
I guess the stats, right?
Right.
And
Right.
the more people you talk, the more you know what I mean, the
Right.
more,
No, right. The
you
more
know
business gonna come in, right?
Yeah, there's a saying, I don't know, I guess in English, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but if you go fishing, if you have one lens, right, you maybe will catch one. Well, if you have 10 out there, right, you'll
You'll
catch,
catch
yeah,
more fish,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
It's a
exactly.
numbers game. And
It's a numbers game, exactly.
I think at the end of the day, I feel like the key to success, right? One of the biggest keys to success is a
Mhm.
network, right?
Okay,
The
yeah,
bigger the network you have, and this is why I like encountering as many people as I can, regardless of whether or not I do business with the individual. I like creating a
yeah,
network because I like having the ability to have that business relationship where
yeah.
if there is something in the future where I can benefit from you or you can benefit from me, we know and have that
I
business
love it.
relationship already, right?
I
So
love it.
networking for me was huge getting into
Yeah,
industry. I was sitting with 50, 60 individuals in a year span,
that's
6 month
awesome.
span. I was just boom, boom, meeting different people because I never knew what was
Yeah.
gonna happen.
And
And
I
I
heard
enjoyed
in
it.
one of your podcasts, because, I've been
Yeah, they
checking you
watch it.
out.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah, I've been
Thank you,
checking you,
bro.
and you
Thank
and
you.
you said like you meet anybody, even if you didn't get no business,
Yep.
just to pick his brain, learn, and say,
Yeah.
hey, hi. That's
Yeah.
awesome, dude. That's like, but a lot of people won't do that.
Right.
You don't understand. You know how many people would not do that because they want to see they want to see the dollar sign. Like,
Right.
what am I making out of it? No, you're not making nothing. The
Right.
ROI is zero,
Right.
because it's not a short-term game. It's a long-term game. And
Exactly.
that's what a lot of people out there do not understand,
Exactly.
you know?
And I think I learned that a little bit in the beginning because when I first got into industry, it was I guess
Mhm.
I didn't have the financial burden of anything,
Okay.
right? When I first got into industry, I was still living with my parents. I
That's
didn't have
awesome.
any financial burden. So when I got into it though, I was interning. I thought I
Yeah.
was not gonna get paid. I thought I was
Yeah.
just here to learn. So I was like, okay, I walked into work,
Yeah.
not getting and
Yeah.
I ended up getting minimum wage. So I was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
happy
Yeah.
just to get anything
Yeah.
because I thought it was free.
But you
So,
appreciated it.
right. I was
That was
happy just to
awesome.
learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And eventually I grew a love for it. And I think that's
Yeah.
where it was
Yeah.
never felt like work. And I
Yeah.
can see that
Yeah.
same thing and
Yeah.
passion from
Correct.
you, and that's
Oh,
why I
absolutely.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that drive, that hustle, that like, okay, I love real
Yeah.
estate. And not a lot of individuals I don't think have that
Yeah.
drive and hustle for it.
Plus, this is a great, like, we're blessed what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's a great vehicle to reach so many, accomplish so many goals you have in your life, right?
Yeah.
Like, this weekend I'm going to Italy. Like, you know what I
Nice
mean?
too.
Yeah, I'm going there. I got a project there. I'm going now. Maybe
Is
I'll
it
go
like a
again with
little
my
like a
family.
flip or
Yeah, I can't say a lot right now,
Oh, okay, my bad, my
but it's gonna be good.
bad.
You'll be invited.
I see that.
I do that. I go to Florida. Like, and there's a lot of stuff that if it wasn't for real estate, we're blessed. This is a great vehicle and we could make a lot of money. So I appreciate every single dollar in real
Yeah.
estate. Like, you know what I mean? Because I remember how hard it was for my dad going to work. You know what I mean? That's why, and don't get me wrong, you could do anything in life. You could even work like, in construction or any job,
Anything.
and you
Right.
could still make a lot of money. But we are blessed what we do, you know what I mean? And we should appreciate it and not
100%.
I feel like, some people don't.
Right. And there's pros and cons too, because I think that, for an individual that they like the 9 to 5 because it's steady
Yeah.
income, they get off at 5, they don't work
Yes,
weekends. With us,
that's true.
it's a little bit different forte. The money's there, but
Correct.
now we're on standby 24/7, regardless of our job just calls for, and that it's a different level. We were just kind of speaking about that,
We were, but just you're always on.
Yeah.
And like I
Yes,
know
yeah.
you were talking about it off camera, like, hey, where do you find the balance? It doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't exist. And people could, the YouTubers and everybody could say, oh, life work balance. Guys, in our industry, it doesn't exist. You have to love it. You got to be all in and blend it all together, and work it out.
Yeah.
I could be with my kids at the beach and work on a little deal and email you, say, hey, what's up? What's going on with that deal? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because your clients need your attention. Because for them, think about it, we do it every day, but for them, this is like the biggest purchase in their life. This is maybe their savings account that's all they're going to accumulate in their life. Those $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in that purchase, right?
Yeah.
So it's huge. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal when they sell. It's a huge deal when they buy. And we got to look at it like that with those eyes and not just another transaction. For me, it's never another transaction.
Right. And do you think it's a necessity in order for you to be great in the industry to never shut off?
I think so. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Agree.
I'm sorry.
No,
to
I
say,
agree.
but
I
some
honestly,
people will be against it. Probably, yeah. If you're gonna hear this, Greg, what are you talking about?
Nah, I 100% agree. I think,
And don't get me wrong. If you want to shut off, that's okay. But you gotta expect a certain limit. Then you're gonna have, you know what I mean?
right.
But if you want to really take off and get to another level, you're not shutting off.
I agree. I mean, you look at any individual that's successful or not just successful. There's a difference between successful and the top 1%, the people who are on the top of the game, You look at any sport. These people are crazy. They're crazy.
Yeah.
You look at Jordan, you look at Kobe, you look at LeBron, you look at anybody.
You know what
great,
they are?
They're crazy.
They're obsessed.
Yes.
You have to be
Obsessed with the game.
obsessed.
Yeah.
Obsessed and paranoid, and that's gonna bring you success.
Right. And
I'm telling you.
if I'm being truthful with you, this is as straightforward as possible. I think that that's something that it's a flaw. Like you said, you drive yourself crazy because you're always wanting more. You always want to see what the next level and always upgrading.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's a negative thing, but in the eyes of other individuals, it might be negative because you feel like you drive yourself crazy,
Correct.
You know?
And some people might think like that,
Yeah.
But hey, it depends on you, you know what I mean? But if if it makes you feel good and you love that craziness, then you go for it.
Yeah.
If not, it's fine. You could be happy, you know what I mean? Then just don't complain.
Honestly, I love that shit though. I really do. I love the feeling of growth. I think that it's always about leveling up because I do see where people transition from your career where you're at producing and then you want to help other individuals grow and do the things that you
and it could be in any job, like because there might be other individual here that are not in the real estate industry, right? And they have a pizza joint, right? I meet a lot of clients. I have a lot of clients, just normal people, good people, bakery, pizza, landscaper. But they made it, and they made it big. You know how number one thing they did?
How?
They just worked their ass off, man. And they were 24/7 on, and little by little, accumulated. Then they invested, of course, if they had a good, like you, get them in a good profit and everything.
Yeah.
And they made it. They made it big. So in any industry, as long as you outwork everybody, you're going to make it, especially in the United States.
What makes you say that about the United States? Because you have different background, bro. You got two countries under you. So what's your perspective on both?
I do. You're blessed here, man. We have opportunities. People always will give you a shot here.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't care who you are, what's your background, who your dad is, your grandpa. It doesn't matter. The normal person, normal working person wants to know who you are. Are you respectful? Are you going to treat them well? Are you going to work hard? That's all they care. Like even when I go to a listing appointment, I don't even God bless, I got awards and whatever. I don't even talk about that. I don't talk about what I want, my listing presentation. I don't talk about that, nothing. I talk about they get to meet me, they see who I am, I have good heart, I care for it. Of course, I got to have knowledge, you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And they give you a shot.
Yeah.
In Italy, it's not like that. Most of Europe, it's not like that.
Really?
It's not.
Really?
It's really not. They do want to know who you are, what's your background. Yeah. Like, God bless, I go down there and I feel it. When I was there, the level of respect was less. Like people treated me well, but it was like, hey, Greg, how are you? Now, it's like, and I hate it because some people are like two-faced.
Yeah.
Now I was like, hey, Greg, how are you?
Oh,
Like I'm like, dude, I'm still the same.
same person.
I'm same Greg that was here when in my teens walking around,
Yeah.
But now it's like, because whatever, they see stuff online, I do real estate, blah, blah.
Right. Right.
But that for me doesn't mean nothing.
I agree. I think that's what makes you successful, though. Right? An individual that doesn't really necessarily need the
Yeah.
accolades,
You
or
got to be
doesn't.
humble.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all it really is.
Yeah, you got to be humble.
You
Like I
know,
have no problem. I could, today drive fancy car, tomorrow I could drive whatever.
my favorite car,
And
my
I'd be
first
fine.
car was a Toyota Camry
Toyota Camry,
2004. It was the
baby. I
best
love
car
it.
I've ever had. Called
You
a
want,
Maria.
you want to know
I
my
love
first
it.
car?
Tell me
Geo
about it.
Tracker, buddy. Geo
There you
Tracker
go, dude.
that I used to go pick up my buddy. Shout out to Vinny. I'm like, hey, Vinny, bring a bottle of water. He's like, what are you talking about? We're going out, right? He's like, yeah, I need a bottle of water because there's a hole in the radiant, and and we had to stop every a few miles to fill out because the it was leaking.
Yeah.
Or it would blow smoke at the whole engine.
Right.
So hey, that's
Those
where I was.
you have a name for it?
What?
Did you have a name for it?
For my baby?
Yeah.
The Geo Tracker?
Yeah.
No, I didn't have a name for it. You had a name for it?
Maria, dude. That was my baby.
Maria.
I had her drove her to like 210,000 miles, and I was like, it still would have kept going. I got
210.
Yeah, dude.
Wow.
Oh, that was my baby, dude.
Wow.
One of my uncles blowtorched muffler on the car. There was so many different things that were happening with that car. But
that's awesome.
I think honestly, it really does come back to that and stem to that. Like if you're, as long as you feel comfortable, like there's not, accolades are always great for yourself. You can kind of see and gauge where you're at amongst the individuals that are in your space. And like I would never guess how much people produce or anything.
You know
like
really
that.
what my accolades are for? I'll tell you the truth.
Mhm.
And that's where I put in my email, and it's like my email's like a page long.
Yeah.
It's for the agents.
Yeah.
Because when I was young and I was coming in the industry, agents, they thought they were big shot. They were not even giving me a time and day to take my offer, to accept my offer. They thought, oh, where you work? How many transactions have you closed? Now I'm like, F you, buddy. I'm showing you everything. I'm like, now they don't talk. That's it.
Well, talk about your struggles getting into like how did you overcome those?
Man, it just, just being kind and nice, because I knew, like, you know what I mean? Like maybe I wasn't at their level. So I was super nice, or super understanding. You know what I mean? I never make him, I kind of had to negotiate with him too, in a way, like just to adapt with his personality, whoever I was talking with, to make sure my client got the deal.
Right.
That's really what it was. So it was hard. I'm not going to lie.
And I think people don't see that, like, life is a game. Life is a game. It's chess. There's gonna be some people that you encounter that you actually don't like. There's some people that you might not like, but you can't show that. It's about you're playing your cards and you're trying to figure out how to maneuver through things.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. You have to be real, right? Like we're here. I think that you do really good online, showing who you are, right? We attract people in our same tribe. I do the same thing. But if you have a client and you have to get the deal for them, deal done for them, you do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it comes down to. And so I got to play the game. I'll play the game with the other side.
Exactly.
To make sure I reach my client goal.
Right.
And that's it.
Right. And that's what's going to make you successful and separate yourself from the rest of people, individuals who, unfortunately, there's sometimes where, and I'm at fault to it too. I had a bad day. Someone gets me frustrated, and then all it takes is for one listing agent to be that I'm frustrated with, that they're snapping at me because my buyer and everybody's snapping, and then you go the wrong thing. But it's a game. Everything is a game, and you got to kind of calm yourself down and kind of make sure that you're doing it for something bigger than what.
I gotta say, I'm super impressed with you.
Thank
you. You're talking like you're 40 years old, dude. It's awesome. It's awesome. I gotta say, you got a awesome. Sorry, I know it's off subject.
No, bro. I mean, I think it really stems from the right mentor.
That's awesome.
I really do think so. I think that when I got, again, like I said, I got into the industry.
Your uncle was your mentor, I think. I heard.
He's been in the industry for 20 years. So he was at Wells Fargo prior to, and he's been in the industry for super long time. And when I got into it, it was easier to transition because, again, like I said.
But, sorry to interrupt you.
Do your thing.
You were humble enough to listen and go work as an intern and get minimum wage and listen your own. Because a lot of young guys, I love you guys, don't want to listen.
Yeah.
They think they know it all.
Yeah.
Even with my kids, if you know it all, I'm kicking them out. I told them. No, I'm not joking.
He's like, you got to be ready.
But I could see already.
Yeah.
I could see in my kids, like, one has a personality and she thinks she knows it all. But that's how they're growing up a little bit.
Yeah.
But you are not like that. So that's huge, man. That's your, in my opinion, that's what makes you different
Thank you,
from your
brother.
pyramid.
Thank you. It's
Yeah,
important to surround yourself with the process
you know.
because you got to know and understand that people,
Yeah,
you're not better than anybody
yeah.
else, and like
No,
you're always going to continue to learn.
no.
That's
I'm
ultimately you're always. I don't
yeah,
care. And we were just funny. I was
yeah.
literally just talking about this morning with my uncle. I had last year we closed 92 transactions,
I love it.
and I'm still learning to
I
this day.
love it.
I'm like, bro, I didn't
92 on a
even.
personal level,
Yeah,
yourself
my team,
in the
me, like
yeah.
just by myself.
Okay,
And
awesome,
thank you,
dude.
bro. And I'm telling you right now, to this day, I have some loans, and I'm like, wait, what? I didn't even know
Yeah.
you had that was a loan.
You
That's
learn
a
every day.
guideline. This is this. We gotta do that. Like
Yeah,
it's crazy. It doesn't matter how
yeah.
many years of experience you have. You're
No,
always gonna be learning.
you
You
learn
know?
every day, and things change all the time, right?
Yeah,
There's no rules, there's no regulation.
yeah, yeah,
Economy goes up and down. Appraisals sometimes are easy, close nice. Sometimes they give you a hard time. You're
yeah,
worried. That's
yeah.
all. You just got to keep adapting.
Right,
You
right.
know?
It's all about changing.
Yeah.
Speaking of adapting, man, you kind of moved over, made a big move, man.
Oh,
So let's talk about the new office. Congratulations
yeah.
on that,
Thank you, man.
man.
Thank you. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
How's
Thank
that
you.
been going? And how did it all start, man? How'd it go?
How it started, I really, when I got into real estate, right? Was working hard those years, and I was just producing myself, right? My pipeline was growing, everything was going good. Then I got an assistant, and then one of my buddies got into the industry. Like he's like, "Can I work with you?" I'm like, "Okay, cool." I'm like, we'll help each other out. And then little by little, it was growing organic. Like I got all these, 1 year, 3 agents, another year, 4 agents, like Greg, like it was growing.
Yeah,
And so at one point, the place where I was, it was okay. It was a mom and pop boutique, been there forever, 50 years, literally
yeah,
talent shop. For me, it didn't bother. It didn't
yeah.
bother me, right? But it wasn't modern. We didn't have like the studio, like now we have like a nice office. It's clean.
It's beautiful,
We
by the way.
rebrand.
Just
Thank you.
drive by,
Thank you.
it's so nice. But
Thank you. We do podcast. Try and do what you do. So we do all this stuff because you have to. You have to adapt with the
yeah,
times. And so when I grew so many agents, I'm like, okay, now it's time to make that move. I think, I'm a different stage in my life. I turned, 40, believe it or not.
congratulations,
I'm
congratulations.
41 actually, believe it or not.
Thought you were like
Yeah,
21,
dude.
dude. Come
Thank you,
on.
thank you. So, and I'm like, this is another decade. I want to do something more new. And yeah, and the universe is the limit. I think this will be one of many. And
Of course,
yeah,
dude. Of
yeah.
course.
And
Well, I guess what's your goal with the office? How big do you want to really
yeah.
expand?
We'll see. I like to take it step by step. Even when I
Mhm.
got into real estate, I used to say like, oh, if I close 10 deals a year, it'll be awesome.
Yeah,
If I close 20 a year, it'll be awesome. Then
yeah,
30, then went to 40, then went 50 to all the way 100 plus.
yeah.
So we'll see. We'll start with, we'll still, I have a goal, I don't like to say it
Hello.
out
Okay.
loud, but we'll take it, let's make this one super successful, and then we'll branch out a little bit more.
So what's your motive when you're speaking to agents or and what like can you provide to agents and
You
things
know,
like that
yeah,
nature?
with the agent, I just really like, I talk with them, and I told them like, listen, I'm going to tell you everything that I've done that's still working now. If it's not working, I'll change it up. I'm just going to tell you. That's
Hmm.
it. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of people when I was growing up, actually, in the industry, it was always, because now I think people are a little more free to talk a little bit
Hmm.
because, how you were going to some mentor and talking. But when I was growing up, it was like a secret. They didn't want to tell you.
Really?
I swear to God. It was
That's
so
so
weird.
I
Like, it
don't
was
know
like
that.
they won't tell you, like, what's working for them or what's doing, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So that bothered me. So my agent, I told him exactly what I'm doing,
Yeah.
exactly what I'm investing, exactly what marketing I'm doing, is everything,
Yeah.
So, and I love it because then I see them grow,
Yeah, man.
and then all of a sudden they're closing 20, 30 deals. I'm like, wow. And
Yeah.
they didn't believe in themselves. But a lot of people have it. They just got to believe in themselves. I think that's one of the main things besides the systems.
But I do think that it does take the right individual to make your goals and dreams not feel crazy. Like if you have someone that's there shouting in your ear, like it's
Yeah.
super easy to close 20, 30 deals. If you
Yes,
put in the time, you put in the work, it's
you're
easy to
right.
do it. And it almost creates almost like a psychological thing in your mind where it's like, oh, I can do that. It's not that
Mm,
hard,
Yeah,
but it's because you have that one person that's showing you the ropes, that's going
correct.
through the
A-
things, the
And then
right
everybody
things.
has their own pace, right?
Right.
Some people probably reach those 30 deals in 1 year, and some people maybe need 5 years, and
Yeah.
that's okay,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But some offices, I love all these offices, all my competition, but some offices don't want to give you the time.
Mm-hmm.
They just looking at their bottom line.
Right.
Like we charge you $300 fee per month. You got to pay this, and you got to close this much. Or if not, you're out the door.
Right.
I don't look at it like that. I mean, I try like, I grew in the industry where I wasn't like, yeah, I was motivated myself, but I didn't have a lot of pressure. And I feel like if they don't have pressure and they could go on, take their time on their own pace, they'll get there.
Yeah.
So that's what we provide that's different. We don't have office fees, and then, as much as help they need, as much as they want to grow, they'll grow. But everybody is different. Like in real estate, a lot of people, and there's a lot of part-time realtors too,
Yeah.
So that's why maybe some can't go all the way in because they have 3 babies, right?
Mhm.
Or they have a mortgage.
Right.
So everybody has different background.
Right.
But can you still make it? Yeah, absolutely you can make it. Absolutely.
And it's about taking a leap. I think at the end of the day, and I tell people this all the time, there's enough food on the table for everybody.
Oh, it's
It's
huge.
just there's so much food on the table, and Gary Vee said it best.
Gary Vee,
I
baby.
love that's
I love
my
Gary Vee.
man.
Gary
Gary Vee said it
Vaynerchuk.
best.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
said, "I could tell you all how to get skinny. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're gonna follow the plan and
Yeah.
do it. Right? You could
Yeah.
tell everybody the path, but that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna take the needs
Yeah.
and the steps in order for them to become successful.
Because you got to walk the talk.
Right.
You
Right.
can't just talk. You can do all these talking, all these fancy things. Even us here, yeah, fancy podcasts, all nice. And then our client calls us. We're like, oh, we're tired. We don't want to pick up the
Yeah.
phone. It's like, what the heck? You did a whole show, and then you don't, you know what I mean?
Nah, you
Close.
can't. Yeah.
Because getting the leads, I feel like it's easy in these days.
Yeah.
It's closing the leads.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't close leads.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how many leads you get. If your percentage is low on closing them,
Right.
you're not,
right.
So that's a big thing. But you got to walk the talk. And you're right. Like
Yeah.
Gary Vee says, like Gary Vee, like he outworked, that's what he did. That was his main
That's
thing.
my point.
He just outworked everybody.
I tell people all the time, I don't think there's one individual that can outwork me. I'm crazy.
I love it.
And I tell people that all the time.
I love
might not be the smartest person in the room. I
Uh-huh.
might not be the, the best looking, whatever it might be. I'm gonna outwork you. That's like it.
Yeah.
I played baseball in college,
Yeah.
and I'll never forget this. This was one quote that I had because when I was getting into college, I was like, man, that's something that scared me. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going into playing baseball in college. You go from high school where you're a really good player, and then you're going to college, it's another level, So when I was getting in, I was like, I don't know what decision to make, what school to go to, how to do it. And this one coach told me, and I was like, what if I fail? What if I suck? Whatever. And this coach told me, he was like, a lot of people could question how good you are at baseball. And not one individual can ever question how hard you work at baseball.
I love it.
So when he told me that, I'm like, I applied that to everything in my
Yeah.
life. You could question whether I'm a good loan officer, whether I do
It
my
doesn't
job,
matter.
whatever I do. You'll never question how hard I work.
Yeah.
I get into the office
You're
every single
gonna go
day.
yeah.
That's just that's how it is. I don't believe from working from home. I don't believe in any of those things. I go to the office every single day. I come in, make your phone calls, post on social media. I do the things that I need to do in order for me myself
You're
to
on
be successful.
24/7. You're on 24/7.
Yeah.
You got to remain hungry, right? You got to want it, right?
Yeah.
You got to remain hungry.
Mhm.
So that's the most important. And everybody has different backgrounds. Don't get me wrong, So for me personally, like I'm hungry, man, and I'm not, I'm just not that I'm satisfied. I'm happy. I'm humbled, but I'm hungry because I do remember the moment, like a quick story, personal story, but at one point we had church help us out, bring us some food.
Awesome, man. Yeah.
So I remember that.
Yeah.
When I was a
humble,
kid
yeah.
and I was like almost embarrassed,
Right.
I remember that moment. I'm like, that's never going to happen
Yeah.
to me and any of my next 10 generations.
And that's
And I just
like,
remain hungry, man.
that's beautiful to
Yeah.
hear because sometimes you got to have those life-changing experiences, in order for you to push you to that next level,
Yeah.
Mine was a little bit different. It didn't happen to me personally.
Yeah.
But it's generations, right? Mine is my grandparents. They came from nothing. They came from Mexico. My other grandparents from Puerto Rico. They didn't have anything.
But they gave you
worked
that drive.
Right. They worked factory jobs their whole life. My
Yeah.
parents came up.
Yeah.
They in the beginning they were struggling. Then they grew a tree. Now my job,
I love it,
just
man.
water the tree.
You
That's
got
it. That's the only thing I
spread
can
a little
do.
bit more seeds,
Yep,
right?
Yep. And then
Get
2-3
that
more trees.
Yeah, get a little more trees. Right now, why not? Right?
Yeah.
Get fruits coming now.
There you go. There you go.
But yeah, man, I hope I could impose my kids with the same drive you have, man. It's awesome.
Thank you, brother.
That's
Thank you,
awesome.
brother. Appreciate it.
I love it.
All right, man. Well, the last part we stopped off was
Yes.
kind of speaking about your daughters and a little
Mhm.
bit of just your family overall. So
Yeah.
I guess the question that I have for you is,
Okay.
how does that impact your business thus far? Is your family a big impact on your business, or how has that affected your business so far?
Man, my family actually. Talking about family, I think when I had my first daughter, man, it was like I became an animal.
Yeah.
Like I had to, I worked even harder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because then you start worrying. So it was a blessing having my daughters.
Yeah.
Because it made me even, it made me even more hungry, And then I'm thinking about them, their future, or, and because I wanted them to have a good base. I wanted them to
Right.
have hopefully give them a good base, and hopefully they make, they plant even better seeds and grow the tree even better.
Right. And that's the best analogy you use: planting seeds, make it grow bigger.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think the thing I want to touch base on is when you're planning for
Hmm.
the future, how
Yes.
do you use real estate for your future, or how do you do with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Okay.
for me, I'm in real estate, so I
Yeah.
live and breathe real estate all day long. So I mean, don't get me wrong, nibble a little bit, trade, e-trade and some
Yeah.
financial advisor, but I love real estate, so I invest in real estate.
Okay.
So a lot, yeah, I do invest. I have properties set up just for them, you
Ah,
know.
nice, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I show actually really they my two daughters, they did their communion last year, right?
Uh-huh.
We did a little party actually around here, place around here. And they had, they got some money. We're Italian, so everybody brings an
Yeah.
envelope.
Yeah.
So they got like all this, like 10 grand,
Yeah.
the 5 grand each. And they're like, "Oh, Papa, what I'm gonna do?" I'm like, "No, no, no." I was at that time was about to close on an investment property. I'm like,
Yeah.
"This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna give you $500. We're gonna put you in a spending account, but the other one you're gonna reinvest." They're like, "Reinvest? What? You're gonna take my money?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yes. I'm gonna pay you a percentage, like a cap rate, on
Yeah.
your money. You wanna buy
Yeah.
this property with, you're gonna be one of my partners."
Yeah.
So I kind of talked them into it, and I showed them the property, and now I set up checking accounts where I pay them little dividends every month. So every month
Ah,
they make this money, and they're like,
nice.
"Oh, Papa, I'm getting these like $20, right, or something,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're like, "Wow." I'm like, "Yeah, that's your money making money." And
Yeah.
in the meantime, you still have the money because it's technically in the property and it's building equity.
Right. Right.
So I'm trying. I'm
That's freaking
trying.
awesome, man. I never
Yeah,
thought of it like that.
yeah.
That's
I'm
actually really
I'm
cool.
telling them stuff right away.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and my youngest is 8, and
Oh,
I'm telling
okay.
her exactly everything.
Are you gonna do you, and this is a personal question, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Ask me anything.
do you want a boy, or is that too
If
good?
we'll see. I have 3. They're
Yeah. Oh, you got three
beautiful.
girls?
I got 3 girls.
Wow, I thought you had two.
No, I got
Oh,
3.
dang,
I
you're
got 3
crazy,
girls.
dude.
3. Uh, I see it where I'll negotiate my name or something with one of them
Yeah,
eventually.
yeah, yeah.
So I'll negotiate something later on
Regina.
just in case. Yeah, I'll negotiate something with. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. That's cool. That's cool. So, what's your overall investment plan for your kids? Because I'm actually interested in myself. Because
Okay.
obviously I'm gonna have my first kid. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's just kind of interesting to kind of get deep into the
Yeah.
investing portion and how you're doing it for your kids.
You know, you might talk with a lot of people here, and financial advisors say do a 529,
Yeah,
where it's like
yeah.
a
That's what
college
I heard.
fund.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do all these IRAs, you could do all that stuff. I Again, and I don't want to be biased, but I like real estate.
Of course.
And I
Of
feel like
course.
I see the government, they bet on real estate. They're not letting it crash. Every year they're just, I mean, it just inflation keeps up with real estate. Real estate keeps up with
Right.
inflation, etc. So I do bet on real estate. So for me, like when I'm buying these properties, investment properties, it's technically for them too, in a
Right.
way. You know what I mean? Because we're cash flowing, we're building equity, and later on it could be useful for college. Actually, even right now, I got my kids in Catholic schools, and the cash flow, one building cash flow is paying for a Catholic school. So it's
Nice.
happening as we speak.
Nice.
You know what
There
I
you
mean?
go.
And these are properties that I bought, 15 years ago.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? But then over time, what happened? The property increased in value. Forget about the value. Even the rents increase. My
Right.
mortgage stayed the same. The rents increase. You're making a little bit more money.
Right. Well, backtrack. So, what was your strategy overall? Did you start with buying a multi-unit and then building out the building, or how did you
I,
build the
I
portfolio?
I love multi units. I'm all
Yeah.
about multi units, but sometimes you can't just buy multi units right away.
Right.
So I just bought. I accumulate money, work really hard, accumulate money, and bought a property. So the first one was a condo. Then
Okay.
was a house, but I kept them. I never sold.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
awesome, dude.
when I started, accumulate a little bit even more, then I bought my 2 flat. Then I
Okay.
bought my 3, you know what I mean?
Okay.
But even the house, I always had, like, it was a house with an attic, so I was kind of renting on the side.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
always knew multi-unit is a thing to do. And I think,
That's
like, now, like I seen your videos too, you're like about, like, buy a multi-unit, FHA. It's
yeah.
possible. Why not? You should do it. I
Yeah.
promote that with my buyers too.
Yeah.
Versus going buy, and nothing wrong if you want to buy your $500,000 house, you can go buy it, no big deal. But if you start with a building, you live with 1 floor, the 2 floors you have income. Now you could get even more creative. even if you're not in your house, you could Airbnb your,
Yeah. Right.
your unit too if you're out of town, you know?
Right. And that's
Um,
honestly, I had one of my first buyers I've ever closed. She bought a 3 flat. She
mhm.
Airbnb'd one. The Airbnb, let alone pay for the whole mortgage, and
Airbnb
then
makes.
steady rental income,
I
dividends.
Yeah, I don't know if you look into Airbnb, but you have no idea. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Do
You
you
know what I
do
mean?
you Airbnb any of your?
I do too. Yeah,
Is it your condo
I
or?
try it all.
Oh,
You know, so
yeah.
I have a multi-unit. One of my multi-unit, the setup is really good for Airbnb. So I took one of those units to try it out, just to
Yeah.
give it a try.
Yeah.
And I make double the money of any of the other units rent.
Wow.
Like that unit, it's like any, let's say I would get like 1,500,
Yeah.
I get 3 grand on average a month.
Nice, man.
Yeah,
That's
on Airbnb. Of course,
right.
there's some expenses, some headaches. Not that much actually. Probably have more headaches with
Tenants.
permanent tenants
Yeah.
versus the Airbnb tenant. You
Yeah.
know, so it works. You know, but you gotta be strategic. The location has to be strategic. The unit should be strategic. You know, I mean, you gotta talk. That's why they talk with you and talk with me,
Right.
and we
Right.
could help out
Yeah.
and figure out if it's the right fit.
But I love that though because I preach multi-units because I do have a lot of buyers
Yeah.
that they start with a single family and they're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I saw your video and I
Yeah.
wanted to buy a
Yeah.
multi-unit so that way I can start
Yeah.
my real estate before. So that's why I preach it to start with it.
Yeah.
But I love your strategy because I
Yeah.
think buying real estate is stronger and has more
Yeah.
value rather than waiting to buy a multi-unit.
Yeah.
So if you have the ability to buy a condo, it's always
You gotta
a good,
buy.
Yeah.
Don't have it like don't have no wall on anything. Like, that's why I tell
Right.
people because the more you wait, I have a client that I met this weekend now, and literally, every year was an excuse. God bless them. I love them, and then nothing wrong. Things happen, but every year was an excuse. Now 5 years passed by. Guess what? All
Yeah.
these same properties that we used to go 5 years ago, they're worth 150,000 more.
Yeah.
That would have been equity in their pocket.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and they would have maybe, even if the rates are high right now, yeah, they're high, but then maybe you could refi,
Right.
build equity. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. You just got to be on top of it. You know,
Right.
so I'm into real estate, and if people are into real estate, I think it's a great tool to succeed, to build wealth. More than any, like it's crazy, but you don't have to have you have to have not like I've seen a lot of old timers, for example, that they came from the old country, and they didn't know a lot of English, and they worked in a fabric, making candy or something. They accumulated money. They bought real estate. They didn't even know what they were buying.
Yeah.
They were probably breaking even.
Right.
But little by little, they kept the property. The rents increased. They built equity. They paid off. Guess now they retire $1 million in equity.
In equity. Right.
I don't know.
Right.
More than a 401k.
There
That's
you
all
go.
I gotta say.
And I think the biggest thing too is a lot of people that were in just overall buying properties got spooked from 2008, right? And for a lot of individuals, right, and there was just so many different situations where people are getting scared.
It's true. But 2008, I mean, if it's you always have to go with your basics too. Like, if it's too good to be true, it's probably there's something going on.
Right.
2008 was too good to be true.
Right.
When you get in a property where you have no skin in the game, negative amortization, equities. Like I just talked to 100, 150 equity, yes, but within 5 years.
Right.
Plus inflation, all this stuff.
Right.
2008, in that time, 2003 to 2008, man, people every year was like 70 grand up, 70 grand up. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was like 10, every month was increasing 10, 20 grand.
Right.
It was insane.
Right.
It was not sustainable.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, I 100% agree. And I think that's where people have that negative connotation about real estate and they don't want to invest in it because they already get spooked about it.
That's true too.
And mind you, my uncle's been in this business for 20 years.
And
he did that. He was one of the people, not just about 2008, the housing crash, but he just had a negative experience about renters, right? And when you have a negative experience already and doing renovations and you're losing money on property, you're just like, man, fuck this, dude. I'd rather just put it in a market where
But you got to look in the long run.
Right.
I got right now, as we speak, I have a flat roof that's getting replaced as we speak.
Yeah.
I have a water heater that broke. I have, these property, am I making money right or no? But I'm looking in the long run. I know the potential that property is going to generate later on.
Right.
That's how you got to look at it.
Right.
In the long run, you're going to come up. But if you look at it short term, same thing with business, same thing when you're buying a property. That's what it comes down to. If you're looking at it short term, what am I making now? You might have to bite the bullet a few years.
Right. Right.
Another thing in 2008, think about it. Talking about 2008 again, even if people would have just kept the property, believe it or not, the value's caught up already. And they're even worth even more now.
Yeah.
Because there's something called inflation.
Inflation, yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. You know what I mean? And that was like, you know what I mean? It just, I see what the economy is doing, what the government's doing. I want to play their game. And like you said, it was a game. I'm trying to figure out what's the game.
Right.
The game is that real estate right now, they don't want to take it down.
Right. Because they saw what happened to the economy once it did go down, right?
Yeah.
And it affected the economy in such a negative
affected a
way
lot.
that, it was
Yeah.
hard to rebound from. So that's
Yeah.
something that they have to
Yeah.
dump money into, because then people start freaking out.
But let's say that it does go down, because many people say, Greg, you talk, and what about 2 years from now, somebody's watching this podcast and the economy did go down.
Mhm.
You see, Greg, I told you back then this economy could have, look what you said. You know what? It's still fine.
Yeah.
Even 2 years from now, it's still going to be fine.
Yeah.
You just hold on, get a fixed rate. As long because I'm not saying to buy something betting just on appreciation. I'm
Right.
saying the number's got to make sense.
Right.
Make sure there's margins. Make sure there's a little cash flow. Make sure it's paying itself off, and you're making a little bit of money. It's worth your time, and then you buy it. If you got those things, then you buy it. And even if the economy crashes, you hold on. You take advantage and buy something that, something that got cheaper.
And this is the way that I explain it to people, right? If the economy crashes tomorrow, real estate market crashes tomorrow, what's your payment? The same payment that it was prior
Yes.
to, right?
Yeah.
And then you continue to make payments like you were
Yes.
planning to, right? And you wait another 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Yeah.
Your equity rebounds. Now you actually have
Yeah.
positive equity or whatever the situation might be, but your payment always stayed the same,
Correct.
so it doesn't hurt to hold. And it's
Correct.
the same principle that applies to stocks.
Correct.
Any investment that you
Yeah,
have,
even stocks.
right?
Yeah.
Whenever you see any market dip, it's just not smart to sell.
Yeah. My
If you need
E-Trade
the-
account went to half. I haven't looked. I haven't opened the app in 6 months.
But that's my point is, if you recognize the loss, it's
Yeah.
a loss. But if
Yeah.
you hold it, it's not a
It
loss
doesn't
yet,
matter. Exactly.
And I wouldn't recognize it until you actually need the money. Now it's a different story. You need
Yeah.
the money. You're struggling, whatever it might
Yeah.
be. You have to sell. Okay, it's a different story than you
Yeah.
having the ability to make a payment.
Yeah. But if you're savvy enough,
Figure it out.
you could figure out.
Yeah.
You could refi. You could pull cash out.
Right.
Use that money. Still keep the property. Rent it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways. Like
Yeah.
even if you think I'm never gonna sell. Mark my
Right.
words. We could talk in 20
Yeah.
years, 30 years from now. Have another podcast. Maybe have AI virtual podcast. Whatever's gonna come up. And you're like, Greg, do you have those property you talked in 2023? I'll say yes.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna sell nothing. Because later on, it's even right now, there's laws where I'll go to my kids tax free until they sell.
Right.
But in the meantime, I could refi and take if I need some cash and take it out.
Right. Right. Well,
I'm betting on real estate. I love real estate.
I love real estate
and
too. I love it.
I don't
And
think it's going nowhere.
I think it's important to share to everybody, because a lot of people don't know how to get into the game. So what advice would you give to individuals who are just trying to get into the game and just want to start their real estate investing?
Of course, talk with you first.
Yeah. Money man, dude.
Talk to money man.
Yeah.
He'll have a plan.
Yeah.
You'll have a plan with them.
Mhm.
And then you figure out, what can you buy? Can you buy a condo? Can you buy a house? Can you buy 2 flat right away? Whatever it is, have a plan and start talking right away. You got to have a plan in life. You got to have some tentative plan. I'm not saying have a plan like you're going to know tomorrow,
Yeah.
but at least tentative.
Right.
Since I've been like a kid, I always have a tentative plan.
Yeah.
If you don't have a tentative plan, then that's what happens,
Yeah.
Tentative goal, I guess.
Right.
And then you see what your option is, and then I don't want to, there's not a specific script for somebody, but maybe for somebody it might be buy a 2-3 flat. For somebody it might be buy a 6 flat because they already have the 20%,
Right.
in the bank, then the bank's not paying that much, or maybe for somebody it's like start small and have a condo,
Right.
So it depends.
And
For
I think
everybody's different.
I do agree that everyone's plan is different.
Yeah.
So I think it is super important to make sure that you do talk to a real estate professional like Greg,
Thank
my
you.
boy here. But I really do want to just shed light on, when you kind of obviously invested in real estate.
Yes.
You obviously started your real estate brokerage. If you had
I
to
did.
look back on your whole span of your
Yes.
life and your career,
Hmm.
how would you grade yourself at this point in time? Because I know you're probably your hardest critic. I know for sure I am. So how would you
Yeah.
grade your life
I
thus
am.
far?
I am. Thank you. I've been blessed. I appreciate everything. But probably a good 7. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
7, 6.9.
What do you think you can?
I could do better.
Where
I could do better.
and what?
Maybe I
avenue?
could have I'm all I could I don't know, maybe I could have done the brokerage before, or I could have invest even earlier. I
Mhm.
think the sooner you invest the better.
Yeah.
Even you, I hope you're buying a lot of real estate,
Yeah.
because I'm telling you, just holding it,
Yeah.
you're increasing your net worth, you're increasing rents, just holding it. That's
Yeah.
all. I just told you that my little old man that worked in the minimum wage, he just held it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all he did.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And though with some little problems, but
Yeah, I mean, because I think a lot of people when they think of the problems, they get all freaked out. But when you think about how much money you've made over the time period, and yes, you
Yeah.
spend 5 grand on a roof, 10 grand, whatever it might be on a roof, but you've made 100 grand in equity,
But
like
that's how people are in life in
you know,
general. You know what I mean? The
yeah,
problem
that's
they
true.
make, the problems they over, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
They over stress on it. We're all going, there's going to be, listen, I have a problem every day,
yeah,
every day.
yeah,
I expect to wake up with a problem,
yeah,
but it's just the attitude you know what I mean?
yeah.
You have for it, you know what I mean? Or
I
how you
actually
embrace it.
really do agree with that. I think I've experienced that more over time where
Yeah.
you get hit with a problem, you're like, all right, it's a problem. Now,
Yeah.
how do we fix it? How do we get around it? You know?
Do I get mad a little bit? Yeah. 5 minutes.
Yeah. No, I
5
agree
minutes.
100%, dude.
5 minutes. I do.
Okay, so now what I gotta do,
Yeah. And
you
then I'm
know?
like, okay, let me figure out next.
No, I
That's
100%
it.
agree. And I think attitude and just having the right mindset is super important
Yeah.
because I don't think anybody else's life issues got to do anything with
No.
anyone around you. So if I have a problem, I don't want my team to feel
Yeah,
that, you
of
know?
course, your team, your
Yeah.
clients, the people you interact, the Starbucks person.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. Be a
Right.
nice guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? No, you gotta be cool. At the end of the day, every problem there's a solution on everything,
Yeah.
except if the guy up there, knocks and say, I want you, I need you, then I get it. Then I have no solution.
Yeah.
Everything else, man, there's a solution.
Right.
From work, from business, to your properties, from investment, to everything.
Right.
That's it.
How much do you attribute your success from discipline?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. You gotta be so you could have all the talk and all the systems, everything, but you gotta be disciplined.
Hmm.
You gotta and I'm old school, right? I have a notebook and I'll write down like what I gotta do tomorrow. I
Yeah.
have a list. Maybe I don't get to it all, but at least it's tentative. It's
Yeah.
there. And you have to repeat, rinse
Yeah.
and repeat, and do it
Yeah.
every day and be consistent in everything you do in every daily basis. But that's everything in life,
Yeah.
for real.
I agree. I
You
think
know?
I tell other people all the time. I think the number one key to success is discipline.
Yeah.
Right. The hardest part about starting your day
Yeah.
is waking up,
Yeah.
doing the things that you say you're gonna
Yeah.
do. Right. Whether it's wake
Correct.
up and eat breakfast, wake up and go to the gym,
Correct.
whatever your routine is, and you're
Correct.
not gonna hit that every single day. You're not.
I agree.
But the point of it is you do it majority of the days. You
Correct.
do it 6, 5, 4 times
Correct.
out the 7 days of the
Correct.
week. That's where you're
I
gonna
agree.
see the consistency, the success rise. Because I'm not perfect, bro. I wake up.
No,
There's some
nobody's
days out
perfect.
the
Me
week I'm like,
too.
bro, I don't want to work
No,
today,
this
dude.
morning
You
I
know?
was
Yeah.
beat up. I wasn't, yeah, I was, like, oh man, but I gotta get up, got that espresso,
Right.
and
There you go. There you
get
go.
going. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But you got to put the mind to it too. Like I feel like it's weird. There's a special energy in the universe. If you put a mind to it,
I
you'll
agree.
reach your goal, man. It's strange. I
Do
can't
you write
explain
down your
it.
goals?
You know, I do, I do.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
I do
What I
too.
want to do, I think about them. Yeah, all the time. Even when I was like earlier age, like when I was a kid, a teenager, I was going through a hard time. We were going through a hard time. I'm like, one day I'm gonna be free. I'm gonna have pretty much financial freedom. I was saying in a way, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't want to depend on nobody. I want to be the boss of myself. But it's hard. Don't get me wrong.
I
It's
agree.
hard to get there, step by step. It's not. There's not no magic stick. It's gonna happen overnight. It's not. But if you put your mind to it, you'll get there.
I 100% agree. I think I went to an event that was very empowering for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Was they told everybody in the stand like I
What kind of
want you
event?
to. It was for core.
Okay, nice.
So it was just a real estate event that again I wasn't licensed yet. I just fresh
Yeah,
got into the business. I was like, okay. And they went into it. They was like, okay, if you had a set amount of income you had to make,
yeah,
what would it be? And then write down your goals. I wrote down whatever. And again, I was like, I had that number in the back of my mind. Now I'm like, you hit it. And you're
yeah,
like, oh shit, I hit it. And now you're like, okay, I'm just gonna start writing down my goals. Now it's a continuous
yeah,
thing. Is just continue to write down your goals. And once you hit these check marks, you're like, okay, how do I
yeah,
add to it? How can I, prosper even
yeah,
higher? And you always
yeah.
want more,
Yeah, yeah. No, more is not bad. Some
Yeah.
people might think it's some bad, but I don't think it's bad. For especially for our industry, it makes you more successful.
Yeah. No, I
But yeah,
agree.
I always want to do better than I did the year before.
I agree.
So
100%.
I always, my goal is always to, pick up a property every year, make a little bit more money than the year before.
Is that one of your things you pick up? You buy a property
Yeah,
every year?
I want to pick up a property
Oh,
every year.
nice. Have you been
Yeah,
successful
it
at it?
has. Yeah, yeah,
Jeez,
no
nice,
complaints.
dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
You have
awesome,
to.
man.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think that again, like you said, real estate is always going to be there. It's something that's definitely secure.
yeah.
When it's backed by the government, you're never going to have a big issue. And even if there is an issue, hold, right?
Worst case scenario, you hold, you know what I mean? And even if we go like, people are like, oh my God, metaverse, blah, blah, everybody's
Yeah.
going to have the goggles on. Yeah, that's true. But there's still need a room to put their goggle in.
Right.
So I'll have the room.
Right.
Stay in the room there. I'll rent rooms then.
Right.
I'll change it up,
Right.
And you put your goggles on and go on Metaverse. That's
Right.
fine. They're not going to do it on the streets.
You just got to adapt the time. Well, I want to wrap it up with this question. Okay.
Yes.
So this is super important for me
boy.
because I think for me,
I
always think about this like at the end of time, right? And for the span of your life, I have a map of what I want and I kind of picture. It always changes.
Okay.
It's always going to change. But in your life, how do you feel like your whole life can transpire? What's your end goal? Like what financial freedom to you? What do you see your family? Like where's your end map for you?
My big thing at the end, I want to be a couple things.
Okay.
I want to be able to be present. Like, I get a call, there's an emergency, there's stuff going on. My kids call me, a family member, and I could say, yeah, I'm present here. I could help you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm there for you. So that's huge, and that means translates like you have financial freedom, you got money coming in, So that's on the financial aspect. But then on a personal level, I want to be remembered as Greg was a nice guy.
I like that.
That's really what it comes down to. Because then at the end of the money, important, but I don't want to be remembered just for money. And forget about that. Greg's a nice guy, good heart. He really cared. That's huge. That's all.
Those are huge. I think at the end of the day, I 100%. I tell people all the time, I want to not have the need to work, but just because I want to work. I don't have to. My phone is off. I don't need to. I'm cool. If I want to, I'll come with the phone. Okay, I need this, but fix this problem, do that. But it's just a want. It's not a need.
Yeah. You're probably always. I see it with a lot of. I sold a condo, big condo nice in the city, John Hancock. And this older gentleman that was selling it, awesome guy. Man, I was inspired. This guy was still wheeling and dealing, and he was 86 years old. I'm telling you, he could have been here in the podcast and give us so much wisdom.
Yeah.
But it kept him active. It kept him alive. Yeah. You know what I mean? So sometimes maybe I'm kind of that kind of guy. I'm going to have to be like that to keep, because,
I agree.
But that's my personality.
Yeah.
I'm
the same way.
So I'm positive I'm going to be active. But at that point, it's going to be more like to keep entertained and, and then you're present for your family and for your kids,
Yeah.
You'll see.
Yeah.
You'll get there. You'll see it.
And honestly, you're the first person that's told me the thing that I think, and I call it dark or whatever, but I tell my girl this all the time. I wonder what people would think if I were to die right now.
Yeah.
Like, what's their image of me? Would they think I'm a good guy? How would people image? And I always want to say for people to be like, man, that kid Justin is a great kid. He's a good guy.
Straight,
like that's it. And I've always said
that's
that,
all.
it's big for me because I want to leave an impact and a positive impact at that.
There's people like, oh, there's legacy, this and that. And it's important, but that's the most important thing, man.
I mean, legacy.
You're not going to make everybody happy, don't get me wrong. But if the majority of things, like, oh, he's a nice guy, good heart,
like I love legacy, but at the same time, like 2-3 generations, then they usually get kind of done. So that's why, like, for the time being, for the people, the individuals that knew me or whatever, I want to leave a great impact on it. But
I agree.
Greg, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Salute. Coffee was good.
Yeah, very good, man. I want to say thank you to everybody who's watching, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. We'd absolutely love to have you to continue watching our stuff and turn on those post notifications. And I hope you have a cafecito on deck.
Salud,
Thanks, Greg.
guys. Thank you.
Take
Thanks
care,
for having me. Bye.